Welcome back. I'm Richard Hosnow, and I'm your host for the Wisdom Inspired Life podcast with listeners in over 70 countries and the new Wisdom Inspired Life YouTube channel. We're continuing to try and better understand wisdom and how we can access it so we can achieve the mission that I've shared, that I have for this, which is to inspire people to be more caring and compassionate so we can more fundamentally deal with the challenges and needs that we have on our home planet Earth. So with that said, there's a very important topic and word that hasn't been used so much, but it needs to be taken out of the closet and dealt with, and that is the word ego. Is it a friend or a foe? And I'm going to suggest that for the vast majority of us, wherever we are today on our spiritual journey, that it's mostly a foe. And I'll try and make the case for that. At its heart, the ego is all about me and I. Okay? Often the ego's me and I focus excludes or diminishes us and we. Okay? I am more important than we. Okay? That's what the ego wants to do. And actually is pretty darn effective at doing it. Okay? So before we get into that, let's understand some basics. I talked about, this is a page that you saw on a previous one on, I think, the second episode on the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And so I want to just get back to what the heck is wisdom, really. Knowledge is developed through our five senses. It interfaces with the brain processes it. Oh, that image I'm seeing is a rose, it's red. Oh, I like roses. Or it sees an image of a German Shepherd running towards it. And because of prior experiences, it's into a flight mode. Because that's what the brain remembers of that image. Get away and run, okay? Wisdom is extraordinarily different than knowledge. Not that knowledge is unimportant, but wisdom is different. Wisdom is from higher levels of consciousness. And I'll just, for the purposes of this conversation, just give the basics of higher levels of consciousness. Right now, as I'm coming to you, I am aware that I have two states of consciousness. One is what I call waking consciousness, because my eyes are open, I'm communicating with you. And the other one is my subconscious. I have a lot of reason to believe from science and psychology and personal experience that there is this other part of me called subconscious. Now, when I'm in waking consciousness, I can't access subconscious, and vice versa. When I'm asleep or maybe existing in a subconscious, it's difficult to get to waking consciousness. So kind of mutually exclusive for the most part. But beyond these two levels of consciousness, there are three additional levels of consciousness that we'll talk in later episodes. Okay? So when I refer to higher levels of consciousness, that's what I'm referring to. That progressive build of three higher levels of consciousness at some level there. At higher levels of consciousness, it delivers deep inner knowing through the power of our intuition. Remember, intuition is the voice of our soul. And the great value of intuition is from a great hero of mine, Albert Einstein. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So true, so true. Okay, a little bit more perspective on knowledge and wisdom and all that. The more we understand ourselves and the universe, the more knowledge we have. The more we know, the more we move from I to we to God. This is the path to self-realization, moving from I to we or us, and eventually to God. And again, my hero, Albert Einstein, says it very succinctly, far better than I do in many cases. More knowledge, more the knowledge, lesser the ego. Exactly. Less of the ego, I'm sorry. See, he can say it a lot better than I can. Lesser the knowledge, more the ego. Okay, so more the knowledge, lesser the ego. Lesser the knowledge, more the ego. They interact with each other. Okay, so let me make the case that the ego is really mostly a foe for us. It has some good qualities, and I'll talk about those, but it's got some qualities that really, really get in our way. The first one is, I am better than you. The ego's belief that I am better than you. This is the big lie we tell ourselves, that I'm better than you. Okay? What the ego does is end up confusing different with better. Are we different than other people? Yeah, we're different in a lot of ways. We look different, we're different ages, and we have different jobs. We have a lot of differences, okay? But don't confuse being different with being better. At the very best, better is very narrow and very momentary. There may be a short moment where you might be better on some small dimension than someone else, but in the big picture, you're different, and different does not necessarily mean better. Okay? Here's the problem. When we think we're better, it separates us from others. I'm better than you. Okay? When being one, all of us being one, is the big insight that wisdom eventually leads us to. Okay? As the quote here says, my success is not due to any personal superiority over other people. Okay? Exactly right. So, believing that I am better than you is going to inhibit spiritual growth and your access to wisdom. Second, personal greed limits and prevents sharing. And greed's all about the ego. Me, more. Okay? Think of Cookie Monster. Okay? Cookie Monster's kind of a nice, kind of funny sort of greed. But nonetheless, if he had his way, none of the kids would have any cookies, I guess. Story for another day. Okay? When we're greedy, we're willing to hurt others to win more and more and more. Being greedy often leads to unscrupulous and even illegal actions, all for the sake of me, my ego. Greed is just another dimension of trying to feel better than others. I have more money, I have more cars, I have more houses, I have more. I am therefore better than you. Okay? That's ego language. Okay? And when you have it, it slows down or prevents spiritual growth. So beware. Third, utilizing personal power to control and manipulate others. This absolutely slows down, even stops spiritual growth. Because in the course of this, what you're doing is restricting the freedom of others for your own personal benefit. I want your actions to serve me. Okay? And it's often done to achieve what can be immoral goals. Okay? And in manipulating and trying to control others can often result in use of force and violence when the person you're trying to control and manipulate resists the efforts. This is a toxic mix of negative energy, and it's absolutely going to undermine your efforts to gain wisdom and use that wisdom to lead a wisdom-inspired life. One last one, very obvious, anger. For the ego, anger happens when our desire for something is frustrated for whatever reason we get angry. If you doubt this explanation for anger, apply it to the situation the next time you have anger. Okay? Now, Anger isn't wise, for sure, because why? Anger inflicts hurt onto others. It does. You know this. When somebody's angry with you, it can hurt you. And it's at its very heart, intense negative energy inhibits your progress towards wisdom. Okay? I know this from personal experience, and I'm sure you do too. At moments when I'm angry, it derails my efforts temporarily to achieve greater wisdom and to live a life guided by wisdom. Okay? So all four of these are manifestations of the ego that are going to make it very difficult for you to acquire wisdom and live a wisdom-inspired life. Now, the ego does have some positives to a point. Okay? Here's how it can help. Be confident, but not arrogant. As you're proceeding down the spiritual journey, for the most part, you're going down on a journey and down a path that you haven't been down before. In a lot of cases, that can make us uneasy, unconfident, all that sort of stuff. But the ego can help us be confident on that journey. Okay? Next is willpower. The ego has willpower to deliver on commitments. The spiritual journey, the life journey, is not easy. If you want to accomplish good things, if you want to change behavior from A to something else, B, that change doesn't happen by flipping a switch. It's going to require commitment and commitment over time and awareness and being very persistent. All of that is about having the willpower, the I-ness. I am going to be able to make the progress and improvements in my life that are going to enable me to access wisdom and live a wisdom-inspired life. Okay? We talked, the third one is intelligence within the ego. It can drive better decision-making when used smartly. And I'd even say wisely. As wisdom develops, wisdom and intelligence interact, and wisdom helps make intelligence better. And the last one is extraordinarily important. It's empathy. Okay? Feeling connected to others, feeling their pain, feeling their experience through their eyes and their experience. That we become connected with others and we move from I to us and we. We are all on this planet as one human race, trying to do our best. And we find ourselves in a period of time with great challenges and needs. And it's ultimately going to take wisdom to overcome those challenges and needs. Yes, science can put an oar in the water, and our systems and political systems and educational systems and everything can, but ultimately, understanding that we're all one on this planet is going to be an insight that comes from deep knowing of wisdom. Okay? And that will be a powerful force for change. Okay? So, yes, the ego's got some very good qualities, but having said that about the ego, at the end of the spiritual journey, we totally let go of our ego. In fact, one of my affirmations every day is, I let go of my ego and I breathe out, wanting to release my ego. And the soul, instead, remember, intuition is the voice of the soul. Soul, our soul, that immortal divine essence in all of us, our soul, then becomes our guidance system. Okay? So, at best, ego can help us temporarily, gradually letting go of it, using its positive capabilities to acquire wisdom, proceeding down the spiritual journey, and we eventually realize that at the end of the day, ego is kind of holding us back, and soul lifts us up and inspires and guides us. Okay? Because that's the voice of God. Okay? Not a Christian God, not a Hindu God, not a Buddha God. For all of us. Okay? So, that's my conversation with you today about the ego. And if you want to know a little bit more about my own progress in that regard, I've published 6 books. 2 of them kind of relate directly to wisdom. A book on Amazon called My Wisdom Inspired Life, A Provocative True Story, is about my spiritual journey from my early years up until about probably 10, maybe 15 years ago. In fact, the book ends with the words, "To be continued." And I should probably take that up probably a little bit further down the road. And I'm not suggesting that my path is right for you, but for those of us on a spiritual journey, there's not a lot of people often that we've had the opportunity to talk to. And there's some principles in my journey that may or may not apply and help you. This is not Richard's attempt to get rich. This book is priced at the absolute minimum over cost, I think 25, 50 cents, so that I don't sell the book at a loss within the Amazon pricing system. Amazon makes money from the sale. I don't really. As always, I greatly appreciate you listening to this episode and listening to the Wisdom Inspired Life YouTube channel. We're on a journey, and I look forward to taking that journey with you further.